Hello, hi. This is a new episode of the what we call the EAVI Conversations, and we are going to talk with Elizabeth Milovidov, that is one of the best known experts on digital parenting across the globe. Elizabeth, I could say, because you really are multilingual, based in different countries and working and cooperating with different kind of organization, public and private. Now you are working for Roblox as well as head of parenting or a similar
explain,
title.
Yeah.
You were at Lego before. You work and you provide consulting and I don't know whether you do that anymore. You have a background in law and economics as well. Economics is
Yes.
not part of the picture. It is. So it's, what is it that you are not? You
I can't fly a plane.
You cannot, but maybe with AI these days it's not going to be too easy. You are featured quite often on TV,
Yes.
in BBC, France 24. You are good.
I'm passionate. I'm passionate about this and have been for the past 15 years. And I can just say, Paolo, as we start the podcast, that nothing has changed, in my opinion, whether we are talking artificial intelligence or way back when 15 years ago with smartphones and bullying, social media, etc. Media literacy, critical thinking is at the core of all of this. We cannot just put blanket bans on our technology. We need to learn. So that is, it's going to be the same all throughout. So you're going to get the Elizabeth of old, but talking about something new, which is artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Let's dive into it. So we are going to talk about digital parenting, our kids, the anxiety of parents, how to cope with those. Again, for the people that are listening to us, there is no better person to talk to. So, Elizabeth, let's start from the usual paradigm. Parents are overwhelmed already by the information and technology, and they cannot really cope. They are not in control anymore. Which are your 3 steps forward? What can they do?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Again, if things haven't changed. So for me, I always called it the ACE method, which was awareness, to be aware of whatever the issues are, whatever we're talking about, what devices or social media or online video games. Afterwards was the C for the critical thinking and conversations. And then E was for engagement. And really parents have to get in there. And I know as a mom myself, my boys are 16 and now 19, it is tough. But I also believe that as a parent, we have brought these children into the world. We want what is best for them. And sometimes, tech companies, governments, NGOs, they're not always available. But we as parents, we are. And I don't like I said, I don't want us to feel that the burden is on parents 100%, but that I just want parents to realize they can do it. ACE, awareness, critical thinking, and engagement for whatever device and technology we're talking about.
So if there is this program that the European launch is a while ago that is called Better Internet for Kids.
Yes.
You are saying better kids for internet. We should invest in our kids.
Oh, I love that, Paolo. And I worked for European School Net, which also it was as a consultant for them, which does better internet for kids. And I think that is absolutely brilliant. And I think, again, it shouldn't just be the parents. It should be schools. It should be government. It should be companies. And, you did mention that I've started a position at Roblox, and it's true. So I've been a consultant. And yes, I still am doing consulting on the side when I can. And I'm also on a number of boards. So your board, as well as the NSPCC, the Child Safety Online Task Force here in the UK, ParentKind, which is the largest parent association as well in the UK, Common Sense Media, which is one of my favorites, but Common Sense Media
Brilliant.
UK. And for me, Common Sense Media is the one of the founders of digital parenting, digital citizenship education, and getting it into schools. So I think that with all of that background, and then most recently at the Lego Group as Global Digital Child Safety Lead, and now in this very first industry created position as global head of parental advocacy, where I am doing the same thing that I always do, Paolo, except now I'm inside the company saying, listen, parents need this, parents want that. Um, so I think that is where we are. And now I've lost my train of thought. What was your original question? Oh,
Is
better internet for kids. I remember. Yes, yes, it is better kids for internet, and I agree. And I think that is something that AI literacy and just literacy, media literacy in general, can help.
let me challenge you because when you talk about awareness, critical thinking, engagement, what do you actually mean? What is it? How do a parent?
Okay. hmm Let's make it even simpler, right? I like a good acronym, but let's make it just very simple. Talk to your children. There we go. Listen and learn. That's it. This is the only way that we are going to understand how they are using their technology, under what conditions, what's happening, if something is happening that is adverse to your values and expectations and principles. It is the only way that parents can intervene is if you are talking with your children. And I can also say that when I worked at European SchoolNet for Better Internet for Kids, and we were seeing that a lot of actually the number one issue and the reason why kids were calling into the helplines was because of cyberbullying and things like that. Kids would not talk to their parents about the issues. And if the children were not speaking to their parents, then of course the situation would just become more aggravated, and it just would become out of control. And so I think there's a lot that parents can do, even if they're not tech savvy, if they're not tech experts. They have common sense, they have life experience, and that they really can parent in the
So
digital age.
is a talk, have a better communication. Somehow is a skill that falls into parenting rather than digital parenting, in or as well as is but kids they seems to trust more AI these days or AI companion. They and I mean, is their innocence exploited by somebody else that care less, obviously, than their parents?
Yeah, I won't say their innocence is exploited. I would say it's a tool. And we have to remember that that's all it is. And this whole idea of chatbots, I think that I don't know, when I was younger, there was a little magic 8 ball. It was this ball that you could roll and shake and you could ask a question and yes, no, maybe so. Okay. Did I think that it was real? Of course I did. Of course I did. But it's just, it doesn't matter if it's in Magic 8 Ball or if it's an AI chatbot. If you don't have an adult talking to you and saying, are you sure really that this is accurate? Or even do you remember with a flower when you were in grade school and you would pick the petal and say, she loves me, she loves me not, she loves me, she loves me not. We believed these things. That was not technology, right? No, Paolo, let's bring it really
Is
home.
no, no.
It's
Is I'm
simple.
thinking about my own memory, and is I always end up on the wrong petal. But let me go to because yeah, it's a tool, but is it really a tool? Is it so neutral? Is because it's the technology is so sophisticated these days that
Yeah. Yeah, of course it's sophisticated, but I mean it's we can also become more sophisticated in the ways that we use it, right? And it's just, it's like airplanes or cars. Are we going to, say, "Oh gosh, we shouldn't go so fast because it's so, complex and sophisticated." Well, it's like, no, just know how to use it. And so let me give you an example. With my own son, with artificial intelligence, I'm not the queen of artificial intelligence. I'm the queen of digital parenting. But with artificial intelligence, what he will do is he will look at one LLM model. So let's say ChatGPT, and he can use that to create a prompt because then he will use it to go into something that he finds more reliable, which is Claude or Perplexity or Comet. As a student, to have a Comet account is brilliant. And so then he can just, tweak it. And I won't say do vibe coding, but he will ask the questions just to get the prompt. He doesn't trust ChatGPT for that answer. He will put it into another model that will give research answers, etc. Is Are there risks with that, Paolo? Of course there are, because sometimes children they don't have enough of our experience to understand that no, Shakespeare didn't say that, or or something like that. And so these are kind of the differences where we have to really be available to support and to help out. Is it going to continue to be a challenge? Yes,
It's astonishing how very few people are in the privileged position of your son. Is in my experience. So what
I
can we do?
agree.
What can school do in given that is a fixed variable that schools are as they are at the moment,
Right. Well,
difficulties in catching up.
for sure, but I think we need to learn from our mistakes in the past with internet, with social media, with online games, with just regulation in general. We need to learn and understand that technology, it's not going away, it's not the enemy, but avoiding education and avoiding conversation, those are the enemies. If we do not educate people on how to use technology,
Is
if we do
big
not,
tech an enemy?
is big tech an enemy?
I mean, the own owner, and not the owner themselves, but the fact that there is a monopoly is of controlling this technology that is for profit making.
Of course, it's for profit making. They are profit maximizers. Are they the enemy? I would find that difficult. Do they make mistakes? Do they make decisions that I would not make? Of course. But I would say the same thing for, fast food makers. And, my kids see the golden arches and their eyes light up, right? And it's just like, okay, I've got to work on that. Um, but I think, but this is also part of parenting, right? We have to raise our children to understand not to just avoid McDonald's or to avoid tech, but to use it wisely. And it's just like, you go to McDonald's once a month, maybe you don't go every day. Use your technology with critical thinking and understand how and why. And again, most importantly, that if it's free, that you are the product. I think that is something that kids from a young age need to understand, because anytime they're downloading any app and it's free, you got to think twice.
Is this I like, and some time ago we were proposing here to call media literacy the art of living in the digital environment. So what you are picturing is an environment within which we have to learn how to know how to inhabit it, or what can we do
Absolutely.
best.
Paolo, it's the only way. Again, and when I was teaching in Paris, I remember seeing at some of the schools where they had technology integrationists. These were people who would come in, and let's say it was a history class. They would come in and teach history, but they would bring in a whiteboard and interactive lessons, and they would also be explaining the technology behind it as they made the lesson come to life. I mean, that is a beautiful use of technology and giving some underlying digital literacy skills and digital citizenship skills. Another school that I had worked with in Dublin, they were teaching younger children how to do averages, right? Just math, simple math. And they said, take out your smartphones. And they had them look at their smartphones and look at the time spent on apps, and they had them understand averages based off of that. And again, they were able to use it as a speakable, teachable moment for digital literacy and digital citizenship. We need to do more of those. And actually, there are a lot of resources out there for parents. Again, with European SchoolNet, I'm thinking e-twinning in Europe, which is a fabulous resource for educators across Europe, where they're sharing lesson plans, and a lot of them are based in technology. The resources are there. I feel that governments should kind of take a step back on the regulation thinking and think about funding schools and education and citizenship and digital literacy. And I think big tech should also support, perhaps not create their own digital literacy modules, but support independent educators who are doing it.
Now, I'm not going to ask whether is or no, is this ban on social media for minors of 16 or 15. Did I say that I was not going to ask? I'm going to.
You said you were
What do you
not going to,
think?
but I can also tell you that I was in Australia arguing for digital parents, of course, and saying that the ban was not the answer. But I wanted to just come back to one important point that you made as well earlier, Paolo, which was about children and chat bots and this kind of emotional dependency, because I
Mm.
do think that that's important. That we as adults understand that there is that persuasive design, and that, the when you speak with AI, you've seen it yourself. You can ask any question and say, and it will say, "Great question." And I mean, that's nice validation, right? And but I think as parents, as educators, we need to make sure that children know that that it's not a human. These are not human feelings, and that if it is okay to use AI for ideas, for
It works for
brainstorming.
adults as well, by the way.
Yeah.
The flattery is a system.
The flattery,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's a great PowerPoint presentation you created, Elizabeth. Yeah, no. We have to realize that, feelings are need to stay with real humans, and that AI can be ideas, brainstorming, and then go back and check with humans. But going back to your question, yes, I know you're going to ask a question about the band. What's your question? What do you want to know? What do you want to know?
Well, if I would ask you yes or no, I know that is awkward, and you kind of say, well, ban is not the answer, but still is worth trying something, and adjust it later on, rather than just do nothing.
Yeah, Paolo, for me, honestly, even though I did not agree with the anxious generation, a lot of the points that were made in that book by Jonathan Haidt, and you can also see an NPR article that my son Maximilian, where he challenged Jonathan Haidt and said
I'd like to read
correlation
it.
is
Yeah.
not causation. Yeah, it's very interesting. In saying, you need to talk with the young people. We need to continue to have their voices present. But when you talk about just bans in general. No, I don't believe in bans, but I do believe that this sort of crisis of moment that we're in, where everybody is feeling anxious and panicky, it's excellent because it raises the issue. I've been running around for 15 years saying the emperor has no clothes. Now it's getting tangible, so now let's fix it. Whether we start with a social media ban and then we, lighten up, that's fine. But I have every faith that we're going to find a solution. And in the end of the day, it's going to be a solution where parents and families are able to decide their own use, because some parents don't want to have anything and some do. And that they're going to understand that for younger children, or children who are neurodivergent, or children who do not yet have, the neuroplasticity, which is anyone under 25, they need some support, and they need guidance, and they need things to understand about clear rules, about privacy, about security, about kindness, whatever they're playing on, whether it's AI, social media, or games.
I remember one of your speeches at the Council of Europe, that you were. I don't know whether it was the title, but I have a dream. I
Yes.
remember that how great it would be if technology would play in favor of our children, is fun, is their health, they could learn, they could contact other friends, and the parents would say, "Hey, go and talk to AI." You see that no, but it's not.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. Yes, I did the keynote for the Council of Europe. I think it was a year or two ago, and it was on Martin Luther King's birthday, which is why I adapted "I Have a Dream" using at that time Chat GPT. I'm sure I'd get a different answer today if I used Claude. But the whole idea is that we have to just do better to face and confront our fears, Paolo. And by that it is with education. And yes, I know my own children are different because I've been in this the entire time. It's like, I don't know, it's like my brother, he's a firefighter. So if you're talking with his kids, they understand all about fire and what not to do and when they're out in the woods and et cetera. So yes, we all have our specialties, but if there's anything that I can keep sharing with parents, is that we have to be calm. We have to parent our children and to realize that when we ban things, when we restrict them, when we take them away, as we've already seen in Australia, they go on VPNs, they find other ways around, they download other apps that are less regulated, and it's a whole other situation. So yeah, we
Yeah, Is
Kids are pretty creative.
I like when you talk about this reality. This is the reality we are living in,
Yeah.
and in which technology is part of it necessarily, and is we cannot rule beyond technology. That this is. Meanwhile, there are people, yeah, you mentioned John Haidt and others is no, they are saying well is the capacity if you delegate, if you don't use it well, and your brain kind of shrink because it's write me this letter, do me this homework, and little by little I won't be able even to without the GPS to turn left to
Right.
go to the supermarket.
Right. But again, Paolo, let me push back on that and say, do you remember when you were in college or in university or high school, and if we had to write an essay, sometimes they had something called the summaries, the cliff notes, right? Where you could get something quick and you didn't have to read the entire thing. There's always a way to get around critical thinking and to find and make something easier. Our job as parents and educators is to make sure that our children know you're not going to learn. You got to be able to think. In order to have skills to function in this world, you need common sense and critical thinking. And the things that are making you more resilient, those are the things that are going to serve you very well in the future. It won't just be, hey, computer, get me out of this situation. It's not going to
And
work.
joint forces, isn't it, is parents and children. They should be part of the same category.
Always, always. And in fact, I even say more so. I call it parents, children, and educators. I call it the triangle of trust. We need all three. And I say this as a former law professor. It's just so, so important that educators are in there.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We are very proud to have you in the advisory board of EAVI.
Oh, Paolo, anytime. And I'm always happy to come back and speak with you about any of these topics. Digital parenting is my heart and my passion. So
We will exploit you.
please
Is
do. Please do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day. Thanks
You too,
again.
Paolo. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.